So you're probably reading the title of this video and questioning, well, why do you think you're a fraud? You know, like why are you a fraud? Why are you claiming that you are a fraud? And it's mostly due to my Pickems. If you guys have been following them, they didn't go well. I only got 1 point in stage three. 1 point out of a possible of 10. And that's because Bet Boom was the only one that actually worked out. Because I put Vitality and Falcons both 3-0. They didn't go 3-0. Both went 3-1 because they stumbled against, they got upset. Navi didn't even make it through. They lost to G2. We'll talk about that result later because that result pissed me off. Spirit and Furia both went 3-0 when I had them 3-1. Foot didn't make it through because they lost to BB, right? Which basically I was, either way, I'm like not getting one of them in the playoffs. And then Mongols lost to 9Z. And 9Z and G2 both made it through to the playoffs and did not go 0-3. So I kind of got rolled in the pick'em stage this time around. It was not pretty by me at all. And I just want to talk about some of the results and some of the teams, right? Talk about the results very quickly, just recap it, and then we might do the pick'ems for major playoffs because I think it's rather interesting to do, right? Even if, in my opinion, I would not follow me. If you're following me, you're doing things wrong because I have not been right a single time when it comes to these pick'ems, right? I think the only stage I passed was stage one, surprisingly, right? Stage two, I got 4 out of 10. Stage three, I got 1 out of 10. So if you're going by this logic, I'm going to be 0 out of, what, 4, 0 out of 8 possibilities on this playoffs. But yeah, just talking about the results very quickly. We're going to go from last place to first place, or last place to qualifying teams. We're just going to talk about them very quickly. Bait, I think Bait had a pretty decent journey and a pretty decent run considering they had no coach, and this is Sizzy's first major, right? I think Sizzy is a bit of a talking point for Bait because in stage two, he really lived up to the stage two and end of stage one against M80. He actually lived up to the potential he had, or the potential I saw in him via the eye test. And I think he did pretty well this tournament. I think NPL played well. I think Kensisor had moments. I think Ascential, bit of a quieter tournament, but he is the supportive piece, even though he's not really the supportive piece because he still gets to make plays and stuff like that. And Alex, I think, considering he didn't have a coach behind him to help him with the calling, because Alex is still relatively young, this will be his first year as a caller, I think, because I think he took it up after the summer break, or roughly after the summer break in 2025. I think Alex is doing a pretty okay job, considering. So I think Bait, pretty decent run considering all things. 0-3 is not that actually bad. You lost a foot in the end for the elimination match. I think it's okay. Paravision, late season collapse. This team completely crumbled when it mattered the most. It seemed like some pieces that I was being a bit critical of actually did perform. I think Noda actually performed pretty okay in stage 3 relative um, to what he was doing before, right? I think Noda for a long time was rather strugglesome, and he was actually a big reason why this team was being held back because he played a lot of the star roles and he just wasn't delivering any numbers. But I think this tournament he actually did okay, 0.99. It's not awful considering they went 0-3. I don't think that's bad. Shilo still did pretty okay with 0.99 as well, right? Typically, they have no really high fragging or high performing individuals on Paravision. So I think them going 0-3, it looks really bad, and it is bad. And in my opinion, changes are coming, right? Belchanok and Noda are the two players they're the biggest pieces, biggest problems on this team. There's a bunch of young prospects coming out of the CIS region that I've talked about, or even more ones I haven't even talked about that are coming up and can fill a lot of these roles. I think Sypho from Namiga for Belchanok would work pretty well. I think somebody like Tenzi for Noda would go well. Hell, you can even get Masvel and Tenzi. It's just the magic duo and just bring them to the squad. And I think they're just better pieces, right? So I think Paravision are 100% going to change, which is because this is a rather disappointing result considering all the hype. They were the team of the season, right? The team of the season to, like to watch, the breakout team, and then they did nothing towards the end. So a bit disappointing. Moving on to the 1-3 eliminations. Legacy, I think Legacy is a bit of a disappointing result. I kind of expected them to make playoffs considering their CIC run. Their CIC run was super impressive. Lotto and Dumal were both playing amazing. Nissim had some okay moments during that run. Sadison, I don't rate as an opper, but He occasionally has the moments, and Art as a caller was kind of being redeemed, in my opinion. One of Art's biggest strengths is, or one of the things he improved on the most since his time post Furia, is actually mid round calling, right? He slows it down in the mid round. He doesn't give up Bozo Deaths for no reason now. He plays with a little more discipline, and I like that. But Legacy here, just not able to get it done. I think Lotto was their best performing player um, across the tournaments, right? But I think everybody else kind of fell off. Yeah, Lotto 1.09. Again, I don't like using stats all the time to Mao 1.05, right? I think the others were a bit more strugglesome. If we want to go down, yeah, Art 0.84. Like, see, the other three, but Nissim had a really rough tournament. Holy, I didn't even realize his numbers were this bad, but his numbers were really poor. So I kind of understand why Legacy didn't make it to playoffs, and I didn't expect them to make it to playoffs. I had a feeling that they could, right? There's a potential, but I haven't seen anything concrete enough from this team to really tell me. Similar to like 9Z, where I'm not sold on this team despite the major playoffs, despite the playoff run in Astana. I'm not sold on this team, and I'm still not sold on this team. You might be like, you're hating because they didn't go 0-3. I'm not hating. There are things, I will talk about them when I talk about them, but they are sus. Monty is the other team. Monty actually had a great run. In my opinion, this was an incredibly commendable run considering all the opponents they faced off against. They faced off against Falcons, Mongols, Aurora. They faced off against G2. They faced off a lot of decent opponents. That's stage two plus stage three, if you're wondering. Like, well, they've only played 4 matches in stage three. But in my opinion, they could have easily been in the 2-3 bracket or even the potential playoffs. Like, in my opinion, if Monty got like 9Z, I think Monty can win that. I think Monty have worse firepower, but I think the calling is way better. So I think there would be a potential. I think Rainwaker had an excellent tournament. Across stage two, stage three, I think Rainwaker was their best player. I think Azulu, great major in my opinion. I understand like he kind of life tournamented because he never played up to this level the entire season. The entire season he was really quite poor, right? But I think at this tournament he was actually good, right? He was getting openers, he was getting multis, he was actually doing his job in the star roles he was playing. So I'm happy to see Azulu playing well because I don't think he's an awful player. I don't think he's irredeemable. I think he is a player that does have potential, but he does have to work on consistency a lot because he's either completely hit or completely miss, and he's been more miss than hit this year. Afro, I think, great stage three. He had a lot of high impact moments with low buys, AK, rifle, op. Like he was doing a lot this stage. I think in stage two he was a little more quiet. Bemis is the one piece that I'm kind of sad about because Bemis is the most experienced of these players at the majors. I realized when I was doing the I think stage two um, preview is that Afro actually hasn't played at a major. I thought he did, but no, he didn't. He didn't play at Paris. He didn't play at I thought he was with the Paris squad, but he wasn't, right? So yeah, I think overall Bemis is the most disappointing of these bunch. I imagine this team is going to be picked apart for pieces. I imagine Afro might get a better offer. I imagine Gizmy will get a better offer. This guy is a great IGL. I already thought he was a great IGL when I knew he was a good IGL in tier two, but I didn't know how good until this year. This year really sold me on Gizmy as an IGL. Watching CCT Global Finals and Draculand and all these tournaments gives me really started. I started realizing like how smart he is as an IGL. Like a lot, he does a lot of gimmick play. He has like a lot of gimmicks within a map that gives him a free opener. A lot of smart mid round ideas. He knows how to use his pieces incredibly well. Rainwaker, great T side star, and good CT side anchor. He had a lot of like, there were so many maps where Rainwaker, I think it was Dust 2, he got like two 4Ks, almost aced and won a round single handedly on like Dust 2 B bomb site, right? Like, and that site is hell. Everybody who plays that site knows that site is hell. And he was like multi killing constantly stopping rushes. So I think Rainwaker could be picked up. Azula and Bemis are the two pieces that I don't think are as good, but I still think they're okay. Um, Sad for Bemis though, because I actually do like Bemis. Uh, Now talking about Maus. Maus are kind of in a weird state where I think there's going to be a lot of roster changes. Apparently, Zershin wants to be an IGL and wants to keep in the role, which is I'm fine with that. But I think Zershin calls around himself quite a bit. I still think Zelix is being used incorrectly. Spinks is, I don't know. I have an opinion that Spinks and Zershin can't be on the same team, and I still agree with that, but we'll see. Um, it's hard to make an argument to cut Spinks just because he is like probably objectively their best player. Brolin came back in for JL, but the team looked worse without JL. I think JL offers a lot of like positive energy for this squad, which I know you're they're gonna be like you're doing vibes analysis, but I think it actually does matter for a team like Mouse where there's no big voices and no big cheerleaders besides Torji. I think Torji needs somebody to help him out with that. I think Torji actually played well at this tournament. I think this when I watched Torji this tournament, he felt like he had way more impact with the op than I was expecting. Right? I should just keep this open. I don't know why I keep closing it. Um, but if I check the stats, yeah, Torji was good, Zershin was good. Zelik struggled, but again, first major, 17-year-old kid. I kind of expect that. Spinks not delivering enough numbers. Brolin was basically hard entry, hard support. I don't really blame him too much for this tournament. On top of that, not a lot of practice with the squad, so I don't think it's on Brolin completely. Mel's, I think, are in a weird spot. They kind of blew up their roster knowing they couldn't win the major, and I'm glad they did something, but I think also like destroying your roster before the major is kind of bad if this is like your home major because Maus are a German organization. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this roster. Hopefully, some of the pieces go to other spots or they do something unique with the roster. Jimmy was not the problem with this roster. I'll die on that hill. Using Zelix as an anchor is fucking stupid. I'm not changing my opinion on that. Stupid. He's not meant for those roles. He is so much better than that. But whatever. Now talking about the last teams that were eliminated. We're going to talk about Navi last because I want to talk. This was really disappointing from Navi, and I have a lot to say. Mongols, really sus T sides, is what I will describe their major as. They had some awful T sides. I swear to God, their T side win rate was extremely low. I don't know if it actually was, but I have a feeling it is. Because every time I watched them, it felt like the T sides just collapsed. Like, it just felt like they didn't know what they were supposed to do. So many moments where they just give up bozo deaths or they just do something they don't have to do. Um, and I hated it. I really hated it. I don't see, but this is actually insane. These are bad stats when I look at it, though. 18% chance to win the round after losing the first death on some of these maps is really bad, especially if these are your two most played maps. This is Mirage, by the way. This is Mirage, one of their best maps. Um, I didn't check these stats beforehand, so I'm not going to talk about them too much, but it felt like their T sides were awful this tournament. Individually, I think 910 was okay, but not the star he was for majority of the season. I think 910 has taken a really big step up this year and was the star of this team. Blitz individually, I think, was okay at this tournament. I don't remember too many bad moments. Some of the T side calling was a bit. I didn't agree with a lot of the T side calling. Just some moments where they gave up Bozo Des and they didn't need to. Moments where they overplay and they don't need to. Moments where they just win bullshit rounds when they shouldn't, right? And that is Mongols. So I don't know how to feel about this roster because I thought they were better than the control-less version of this roster, but I also think like 910 is probably going to go to a better squad. Like, I feel like he should. Like, I feel like if I'm 910, I'm going to go international because I'm an opper and I'm actually good. Like, why wouldn't I go to another squad? But maybe he wants to play in this team. I know Mongols and Mongolia has a lot of national support, right? There's a huge pressure on them as kind of like the national team of Mongolia. So I think they're a bit of an interesting story. I don't know what they're actually going to do with roster changes. I like Cobra's era. I understand he didn't perform that well at this major. I like we can check, but I don't think he had a great major in general. And the eye test told me he made a decent amount of mistakes. He actually wasn't that bad. 910 and Blitz were actually at the top, which kind of makes sense. But 910 wasn't delivering the numbers he usually does because 910 for most tournaments is like a 1.15, 1.10. Mizzino, I felt like on Inferno he got punished a lot, and Techno was not a good fragger in general. Um, Not that the eye test tells me Techno was bad. The eye test tells me Techno can actually shoot. The problem is Techno just makes a lot of stupid decisions sometimes, and that baffles me. But he also plays a lot of the supportive roles, so yeah. Talking about Foot major rookies. I kind of expected them to possibly not make it, and they didn't make it. I had them through my Pickems just based off form because I thought stage two they looked rather good, but it seemed like a lot of infighting and like turmoil happened at this tournament, a lot of like frustration with Krebeni and Coolio towards the team. Like it seems like the team just wasn't playing the way they were. They were playing more scared, more locked up, more cagey, right, than usual, because usually they're more loose. They have to, they play default, and then the individuals kind of make the moments happen. I think I saw some good things in terms of the calling from Krebeni. I think Krebeni, calling wise, did what he should have been, but I also don't think he's completely blame free. I think Lonks individually had another rough tournament, which is a bit sad because I actually like Lonks. It seems like they're also considering roster changes, which kind of sucks because this is a rather young team. Apparently, Lonks has a wrist injury. I'm not sure, or a hand injury. I'm not sure. Jugas, I think, was amazing. When I watched Jugas most of his tournament, he was giving his team so many opportunities within games and within maps to actually, like, he was giving them chances within rounds. He would get a clawback here, or he would get an important multi-kill there, right? And I feel like he was doing his job. I think Krebeni fragging-wise also did. Demon had some really bad whiffs. Symmetry, decision-making-wise, is just awful sometimes. Goes for these shots that he should never go for. Like, he thinks he's simple. He thinks he's, like, 10 times better than what he actually is. But it's like, you're not simple. You're not Mondesi. Just hold the line, don't peek. Like, I would prefer that from my opera so much more. But Symmetry, he kept peeking. He kept going for it, and I really hate I hate that sometimes because when an opper can't, like, he thinks he almost treats the op like it's a rifle, but it's not a rifle. Like, you don't have the mobility of a rifle. You can't, you know what I mean? I hate it sometimes, but overall, I think this is a decent run considering this is their first major as rookies for. I think all 5 of them are rookies. I'm pretty sure. Lonks might have been at a major, but I'm not entirely sure. Um, if he was on Sprout or another team. I think Sprout would be the team he would make the major on, but I don't think he made it with that team. So overall, I think Foot, decent run, 1 game shy of playoffs. I think that shows that they have more room to grow, and I like a lot of the pieces. I really like Jugas in particular. I think Jugas was so good. I still think he was robbed the PGL Bucharest MVP. Cemetery got it over him. It's still bullshit. I still disagree with HLTV, and I don't care. Moving on to the last team is Navi. Navi were extremely disappointing, considering the fact that they won I Am Atlanta before this, and every single one of the pieces besides Bit and Alexi B went missing. I'm not even joking. This tournament frustrated the fuck out of me because Wonderful did have some great moments this tournament, but then also went completely missing when it mattered the most, right? Wonderful, who I think I've said this so many times, I've even said it on streams, is that Wonderful is one of the most maligned tier 1 operas I think I have ever seen. This guy is so much better than what people actually think he is. People think he's a bum, but he's not, right? He's like a top 5 opera pretty consistently. Last year, 2025 was actually better than his 2024 year. I said that, I made that a hot take. Some people disagree because they're like, well, the team results. But if you actually watch the eye test, he was hitting way more shots more consistently. He was way more clutch. So no, I think Wonderful is super maligned, but tournaments like these are gonna, like, people remember these tournaments and they're like, Wonderful's a bum, and they're gonna point to the last 2 maps of Inferno and Mirage and they're gonna be like, look, he didn't do anything, and I'm gonna have to defend him, and people are gonna be like, gonna continue this narrative that he's a bum, and I hate it, right? Because I really want Navi to succeed in this tournament. This tournament meant a lot for Navi, and I think it meant a lot for not only just Navi as an org, but for the players, right? That, like, because this roster had so much potential. They were the second best team for most of the year, and then they just fucking fumble right at the end of the line. Makaze goes missing. Makaze had an awful tournament. I'm talking awful. This tournament was not good for Makaze at all. I think the only player who I put no blame on is Bit. I think Bit was the only player that played well. Only player. Emma is 100% getting replaced. No offense to Emma. I don't even listen. I flame Emma a lot, and I flame him for good reason, because I think he's not good enough as a star player. But he is not a bad player. Emma is just can't aim for shit. Is the problem. He relies on trade fragging. He relies on, like, teammates to give him timings or flashbangs. He relies on a lot of setup, and when he gets the setup, he will provide multis. But he is not good enough at a tier 1 level for a champion title like contenders like Navi. He's just not good enough. So in my opinion, it sounds like they're gonna make changes. Hopefully they get Frozen. That's what I'm begging for Frozen. Just get him off phase, get him on Navi. The roster becomes infinitely better, and I get a team I can actually root for because I like Navi, I like Blade, I like all these pieces, but for some reason they just can't fucking get it together when it matters the most. Because this is what people are gonna remember Navi season for. Is this major and failing again? So yeah, it pisses me off. Um, But yeah, Makaze, awful tournament. This was a really bad tournament. Like 0.96, I don't think does it justice. He had some awful fucking games. And finally, when Makaze shows up, which is on the final map of Mirage, everybody else goes missing. Every other person goes missing besides Bit. So, really frustrating tournament for Navi. I am so disappointed that they lost. And they lost to G2. And G2, by the way, G2 were not free from this. G2 are not. G2 and 9Z are not free from my wrath just because Navi did bad. G2 called some of the worst T sides I've ever seen in this Navi game. They were fucking awful. They were so bad, these T sides. But they won the game. But they won. And I don't understand how. You know what? I do understand how. It's Heavy God. Heavy God was carrying this roster on his back the entire tournament. I'm not joking. This is one of the most disgusting carry performances I've ever seen out of an anchor. This guy had to do so much for this roster to do anything. Everybody else was negative rating. He was the only positive one. He was the only positive one. And this guy was omega carrying. Like, omega carrying. Sorry, I'm getting so mad because it's so fucking tragic what they lost to. Hunter is the easiest piece to replace ever. In my opinion, if I'm looking at Monty, I'm getting Gizmy. Today. As soon as the playoffs are over, which by the way, they're losing in quarters. I'm just going to say it. They're going to get smashed in quarters. As soon as quarters is over, I'm signing Gizmy for Hunter. It's not even a question. He called the same B-pop every single fucking round on Dust 2 against Navi. And they were winning rounds because Makaze just wasn't shooting back. Like, it's so stupid. It's so bad. And then on Inferno, he just called contact plays every T round, and they won. And they won is the fucked up part. And Navi's veto strategy on that final series actually drove me up a fucking wall. They picked Inferno. Why? Why would you pick Inferno against G2? They can actually play the map. Just pick Mirage or Ancient. I'm spinning all over my camera because it actually pisses me off. It's so fucking dog shit. So, no, G2 were bad and they were fraudulent, but Navis are bigger frauds than G2 this tournament somehow. Bet Boom, good tournament considering they have this is actually excellent result for Boomich. I think Boomich called amazing at this tournament. Sorry, I have to get off G2 or I'm going to lose it. Boomich called amazing at this tournament. Magnojez played extremely well this tournament. Diladez, as a stand-in, I think did everything he should have within his anchor roles. He's super overqualified for those positions. Guy has incredibly sharp aim. Flames at stage 3 was quieter, but stage 1 and stage 2, he was really good. And Zorte, decent opper. He's not amazing, but he's decent for CIS region. I think Bet Boom were kind of my hipster pick to make it into playoffs, and I was right. This is the only pick I was right on in my Pickems, so there you go. 9Z versus Mongols. Or, sorry, not 9Z versus Mongols. 9Z, jeez, I'm lost. I'm sorry. Anger actually made me blind for a second. 9Z, not good T sides. They were carried by individuals and their riflers. They were not carried by Marin. Marin's not a good opper, and Max I don't think is an amazing caller. There's a lot of structure problems. This team is sometimes too individualistic, as is normal with South American CS. Right, a lot of South American CS is very individualistic, playing off kind of like going for your own moves and then kind of trying to connect the pieces in the mid to late rounds. The South American chaotic style, Brazilian chaotic style, even though they're not Brazilian, right? I think, I mean, this is a great tournament from them, but I'm still not sold by them. They rely on CT sides a lot. They rely on Luchov to get T side openers to win and convert rounds. Huaso Peak had an excellent stage 3 in terms of the impact he was delivering, despite the stats being only like 1.05. But yeah, 9Z overperformance. I rate them 0-3. I still don't rate this team. I still think they have consistency problems. I still think the calling is sus. I still think Marin needs to be replaced. But yeah. Falcons. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch a lot of Falcons this tournament. This is probably the one tournament where I didn't watch a lot of Falcons. I watched the Monty versus Falcon games, and that was it. That was the only series I watched was the Falcons versus Monty game. And in that game, they almost lost to Monty, who are literally one player, or the entire roster of Monty is worth one player on Falcons salary wise, probably. So I think that goes to show you the difference. The fact that they almost lost to that team, right? I think shows like the floor of this team is extremely low. Like I think Falcons have an extremely low floor with Kerrigan as their caller, and I think even though they have the individuals, sometimes this team can lose to way worse teams below them, which actually scares me quite a bit. But I also do think they can tussle with the best because of Kerrigan. And Kerrigan in playoffs, you never know what can happen. I think Mondesi had a great tournament. Tess Omega carried in the Navi game. I did watch the Navi game afterwards. Omega carried on that Anubis. Without Tessis, they do not win that Anubis at all, and they do not go 3-1. So I've seen some good things. I think Kerrigan has done his job, which is activate Kiyosuke, activate Tessis, right? I think Tessis looks a lot better this tournament. Sorry, I'm looking at G2 and not looking at Falcons. Where are Falcons? I didn't pull up the stats, but Modesty, extremely good. Nico had some excellent series, especially against Monty. He had some great series against Monty, I remember. And Tessis in the Navi series was crucial. They would have lost Anubis otherwise. I think Navi also played awful in that Anubis, but um, we're not going to talk about it. Aurora, bit of a shocker because they kind of typically choke at majors, but this major they didn't choke. This major they actually went above and beyond, especially because Wicadia and Soulfly I think were rather impactful when you watch the games. I think Wicadia and Soulfly did so much work, especially Wicadia. Wicadia dropped like 0.88 KPR or something like that at this tournament. They smashed 9Z, wasn't even close. Suntaras did his job. Woxic had a really important 1v4 clutch against 1v3, 1v4 clutch. Depends on how you determine it against 9Z. That basically solidified that map. So I think Aurora is a bit of a surprising thing. I've mentioned that Wicadia has taken a step up this year, and Major as a caller has actually gotten better and allowed Wicadia to lurk more. And I think they're still doing that. I think Soulfly as a supportive piece has done exactly what he needs to do. His floor is higher than Joda's. I think his ceiling is a bit lower, but I think his floor is higher. So yeah, good for Aurora. Vitality, stumble in the 9Z game, but they get it done against BetBoom pretty convincingly. You saw a lot of frustration this tournament from Apex. I think Apex felt like he wasn't on the same page as some of his teammates. He seemed to be complaining a lot, and I kind of understand that. Zaiwu had an excellent stage, though. Stage 3, I think Zaiwu was incredible. I think he did everything you could expect him to do. I think Rops is quieter this tournament. I think Flamesy's quieter this tournament. I would have to check. But just based off the eye test, that's what it's telling me. Yeah, they're a bit quieter. But it was Zaiwu Masterclass, right? I remember in I forget which game it was. I think it was the Bet Boom game where Zaiwu looked incredible on Nuke. Like he looked unstoppable on Nuke for the first like I don't know how many rounds. He had an M4 and he was just one tapping people in yard, just actually one tapping them like with the M4A1S. Um, it was kind of insane how well Zaiwu was playing on that map. Um, and like as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, Vitality are taking this against Bet Boom easy. And it wasn't easy because Bet Boom started clawing their way back, but because of some problems with Apex and all these things. Apex was kind of playing bad in yard on T side, but I think Zaiwu looks incredible. So Vitality, I still think they're the favorites despite this strugglesome start, but we'll see. Spirit, I think Spirit played very well. The 9C game was extremely close. They will not have a coach going into the playoffs, which is a bit concerning. They're going to have Yab Yabich. I know everybody loves that little frog thing, but I don't really care. Sorry. It's not really funny to me, but to other people, if you like it, that's cool. Um, Donk still incredible this tournament or this stage, had the highest rating. Tier had some great moments, I think. I don't exactly remember, but all right. So I got interrupted, so I'm just gonna do the rest of this rather quick. So I was talking about Spirit last. Spirit, I think did pretty okay. Donk had an amazing time. Shiro in the 9Z game had an awesome, quite, especially in that 9Z game, he had a lot of impact, winning a lot of clutches. He was probably the most important player, even though Donk does have the higher rating. Either Shiro had plenty of important maps, or plenty of important moments, especially on D2, I think. Zontix, I think the eye test on Zontix, I wanted to make this take for a while, but I feel like the eye test on Zontix tells me A, he's aiming for the head more, and he's prioritizing the AK more. I don't know if that, I don't know, I don't have the stats to back that up, but I feel like that's actually happening. When I watch the games, is he's picking up the AK more on CT side, he's aiming for the headshot or headshots more. Um, so I think that's good. I think he's going for more plays as well. I think Zontex eye test wise is telling me that he's actually going for more plays and he's being more aggressive and more assertive. Um, he's kind of playing that shush role where sometimes he's going in front. He's playing the supportive role, right? He's not hard anchor. He's anchoring, but then he's also having to go first sometimes. But sometimes he gets the lurk, right? He's a bit of a interesting player because of that, but I think he's actually done rather well in those roles. And I'm glad to see him do well because I think the stats don't always reflect on Zontix. I think the eye test is much better than the stats show. I think Tenier, bit more of a rough stage 3. I think partially because of the 9Z game. I think the 9Z game he was pretty quiet in. We can check, but yeah, 9Z game he was really rough. I remember this Aurora game. He was great in this. These two maps. And then against Navi, second map he wasn't great. But again, he's never been good at Anubis. I don't know what it is, but he's not good on Anubis. Maybe just because he's bad at the middle position, which I think he is bad at the middle position. And I would rather see Magix play it or something. But he wants to. They want him to have it, and I mean that's fine. But yeah, I think Spirit are the team that I am the most excited to watch in the playoffs, and the team, even though they're not the favorites, and I don't think they will be. I think they're probably the second or third favorites. It determines on how you see Furia or Falcons' chances. But Spirit are a team I want to win, right? They're the team I want to win because again, I'm not somebody who cares about these things like legacy and having 3 majors in a row. I don't care about those things. So I just want a competitive scene. But yeah, Spirit looked very strong going into the playoffs. And then Furia, bit of a surprising thing. I think Yukindor had an excellent stage across the board. Yukindor, I think, was their second highest rated player or highest rated player. Quesarado actually had some more stumbles, right? Surprisingly, because Quesarado is usually their most consistent rifler across the board. But he was, he stumbled a bit in the Mouse game, which is surprising. I feel like a team like Mouse he would actually farm against. I didn't watch a lot of the Furia games. I caught a few of them. I think I caught the Mouse one, and I thought they looked good. I think the mid rounding looked a bit better. I think in general the players all look revitalized, right? I think Yuri had some decent moments. I think he was way less of a liability than he normally is, which is that's good, right? When you have Yuri actually performing, I feel like this roster is very scary. Also, I didn't realize Thomas was that bad in that series because I remember that's brutal. But yeah, I think Furia they have the easy side of the bracket. If you want to look at it this way, they have the easy side of the bracket with 9Z getting the South American Derby and then Aurora Betboom on who wins that. So realistically, I think Furia are the favorites to make the finals on this side of the bracket. This is the bracket of death, especially if they had Navi. This would be the bracket of death because you would have Spirit Navi in the first match. But Spirit G2, I think Spirit will beat G2 easily. Um, unless Heavy got again master classes and just was able to drop donk like numbers, but I don't think so. I think Spirit has too much firepower. G2 have been disappointing in playoffs, so I don't imagine they'll do anything. And then Falcons Vita, this one is rather interesting because it really depends on how well Falcons are playing on the day and if Kerrigan is able to create magic with this roster. And Nico doesn't choke, Those things are really important. Nico usually doesn't choke in quarterfinals, from what I understand. He's more of a finals choker or semifinals player, but I think in general, I think Vita are still the favorites to win that based off everything that's happened this season, right? And on top of that, I think the form from Falcons was a bit questionable. You saw some of the flaws, especially when facing off against teams like Monty. Monty are a team with no player remotely close to the individual talent of Falcons, right? but still they were able to make that game pretty competitive, made it 3 maps, right? So I think that Falcons can upset Vita, but I imagine Vita are making the finals and are probably winning the entire thing. However, I do want Spirit. The hint of my pick'ems, if I'm doing my pick'ems right now, you know, can I do the actually did I pick my pick'ems? Okay. Well, if I'm doing my pick'ems right now, it'd be Furia. How do I do this? Why can't I not pick them? Let me pick. How do you do? Okay, can't do simulator. Okay, so if I was doing the simulator, I do Furia, I do Aurora, Spirit, Vit, and then this is probably what it would be. But what I want to happen is this. But yeah. Also, it depends. The reason I imagine Furia will win is mostly A, player talent, and they have more experience on the stages. Even though Moladoy does choke, and Quesarado sometimes. The stat says he does well, but the eye test tells me he's not doing enough. He stops going for the plays he needs to when his team starts to play worse, I find. But it all depends. But that's basically all I have for this video. This video was a little bit rambly and a little bit messy as normal with my videos. I feel like most people know. I just like the ramble. I like to yap, and I'm just gonna keep yapping about CS. I might be doing some demo reviews of a player. I didn't watch this demo yet, but it's a player I've talked about on the channel before. His name is Sadame. So I might be doing that. Might release that today as well as this. But as you can see, these are like I did my pick'ems basically live, right? I showed you what my pick'ems were. I don't want to go too in depth. I don't want to pull up the CS client. That's what I'll be doing for my pick'ems. Um, anyway, but I'll still be hoping that Spirit win because why? Because I love Donk, bro. Like I don't think any player has made me fall in love with CS as much as Donk has. Uh, Prime Simple might be the other one, but Donk is definitely the player who I love. Like I will always be a fan of this guy. For as long as he exists, I will always be a fan of him. Just because of how he plays, right? I've never seen a player as incredible as him. Um, so yeah, that's why I will be always be a fan of Spirit as long as Donk is on that roster. So yeah, thank you for watching and let me know about your pick'ems. Let me know if you think I'm a fraud because that's the title of this video. Um, but yeah, I probably am a fraud based on my pick'em results.